This is Whispering Adirondacks Radio. Part 5 of the Don Morrison interview and broadcast starts now. With the closing of the interview with Don, I would personally like to thank both Don and Connie for sitting down with me and allowing to ask the questions and allowing you, the listeners, to learn about their adventures over the last 45 plus years here in New York. I would like to also say that Don mentioned in his closing statement that he wished he had spent more time at home with family rather than being so dedicated to so many projects and organizations. What I would like to add to this is for you, Don, because of all your dedication to the community, to the park, to the boards and charities, and unknown acts you have done. You have made your family bigger outside of your home. You have created a family in the community, friends, connections, and most importantly, you did it because you cared. And I think we all owe Don so much gratitude for everything he has sacrificed to make all our lives just a little bit happier and brighter. I would encourage you to share your memories of the J Village Green, stories of perhaps working with Don or how his actions have impacted you. Perhaps a J News post or letter mailed to Don would be most welcoming, to pass on how much the community appreciates his and his family's efforts. Please stay tuned for one final broadcast in Part 5 of local interviews by residents of the area talking about the Village Green, the bandstand, Don's many volunteer efforts, and memories they may share. Tell me your name.
J. Mcdonald.
You grew up in J, correct?
I did.
Tell me how you feel about the J Village Green.
Oh, I think Don Morrison did such a fantastic job. He's going to be well missed. He's done many, many years of free labor, free service. He's even put his own money into some of the decorations and things. I tried to talk him out of retirement because he did such a good job, but I understand he's had enough, and he's going to be well missed, that's for sure, because he took care of everything right from Memorial Day to Christmas.
Yeah, he definitely took care of the park year-round.
Yes, he did.
His dedication to the Village Green and to the town as a whole, what would you like to say to Don for all his years of dedication?
Thank you, Don. It looked very nice. Everything you did was professional. Like I said, it's going to be hard to find somebody to take over that position. He cared about it like it's his own backyard. It looks so nice and neat. Every night he's out there doing something. And thank you very much to Don Morrison for all he did for making the J Village Green look as fantastic as it did over the many, many years.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on the bandstand, and what history do you know about it, Jay?
Well, the only history I know about the bandstand has been since I was a kid. We used to hang out there, but I don't know much more about it than that, really.
Okay. Well, the next question, I guess, will lead into that. Would you be upset if the bandstand was destroyed for a music stage after 40 years of restoration work by Don and his volunteers?
I would hate to see that go. That's nostalgia.
Yeah.
Been there forever. I would hate to see it go.
The bandstand has actually been there for over 130 years.
Yeah.
It's in the same spot it was originally from looking at historical pictures.
Right.
And there's two stories about the bandstand, and the more likely one, which me and Don and his wife Connie talked about in the interview, was the first one was that it was built in memory of the brass band leader. But that story really doesn't make a lot of sense because they played in the bandstand with the brass band.
Okay.
So I don't think it was built in memory of him because they used it to play in. The more generic story that the town historian found per Sharon Houston, per Mary Wallace, was that it was built in memory of a 5-year-old boy that drowned in the East Branch of the Ausable River.
Okay.
So it's in memory of a 5-year-old boy from all accounts from the two historians. The next question says, perhaps Gems could construct an outside music stage on their remaining property or a ground level stage around the south side of the bandstand to keep the historic structure in place rather than seeing the bandstand disappear.
Anything but taking the bandstand down, I would say.
Okay.
I'd hate to see that go.
Memories at the J Village Green. You must have a lot growing up so nearby.
First one that comes to memory is the 4th of July celebration there. Every year on the 4th, they had the booths in the park, and they'd set up all week long, and it was just, I remember every day, when it's coming to the 4th of July, I remember it, think about it, when it used to be in the park.
And what did they used to have in the park for 4th of July celebrations?
They had each individual booth, like a hot dog booth, a hamburger booth, then they added French fries, they had a souvenir booth, the big bingo tent. I'm trying to remember what else they had there. A lot of games, like card games and things like that. They used to have a mouse game where you had to bet on the mouse, which cup the mouse was going to run under. That was pretty cool, but they did away with that because of cruelty mice.
Oh.
Yeah, and good memories too of, as a kid, we used to snowmobile around the park, and when they put the big snowbanks there before the sidewalks, and we'd tunnel through big snowbanks and through the other side with the two stores there, McDonald's and Madden's. Everything was just close-knit right here in town.
Yep, and you had a lot of siblings, so I'm sure you all played together in the park.
We did. Oh, yes. We had all kinds of toboggans and stuff to slide on, but we didn't do that in the park. But we would do that on the hill over here in Morrison Self-Made's back lot.
Right.
But the park, we would always ride our snowmobiles around the park, and we'd tunnel through the snowbanks to the other side. So they were so big we couldn't climb over them. Or we could, but we just tunnel through and go to the other side.
Have you ever volunteered at the park with Don before?
Well, yeah. I think he had open heart surgery maybe 6 years ago, maybe. And he was walking by my house, him and his wife Connie, and someone told me that, and I said to him, if you need help in the park decorating for Christmas, you let me know. Connie says, Don, he's talking to you. What? I said it again, and oh, sure, I'd love help. So I've helped him out of the last, I think 3 out of 4 last 4 years. I didn't do it last year. I was somewhere else or something. But this past year, 2022, I did it myself with my brother because he was done.
Okay.
It was all done. And I said, I'll do the Christmas this year, and then we'll go from there and see who takes it over. And I said, if nobody does it, I'm going to see Christmas gets done, and I'm going to try to better it.
Right.
Not better Don, just better some more decorations, different stuff.
Right.
But he did such a great job that, it'd be hard to top him. But he was very pleased this year when I changed the lights in the bandstand from the white clear lights to the red and green.
Okay.
Oh, that looks so nice, he said.
Well, that's good. And it did look very nice. Which brother helped you with it, Jay?
John.
John did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, that's all the questions I have here. Do you have any last thoughts before we end the interview?
No. I just wish Don well, and he deserves the retirement and not have so much on his plate and worry about. But he did such a great job. It looks so nice every year, from summertime to wintertime, Halloween time, any time that he had a, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July, he took care of all of it. The fountain looked beautiful. It's like it's his own backyard. He just took care of it.
He did do a great job, and
Yeah.
and now he can sit back and enjoy it rather than labor all of his extra time on it. So.
Yeah, he deserves it, but I tried talking him out of it, but he wouldn't hear of it.
Yeah.
I said, well, how about if I work with you on stuff? He said, no, I'm all done. But I told him, I said, I can't commit like you did to everything you did because you did a lot. And I said, I'm not retired, so I can't commit to doing everything he did. But I said, I will tell you this, Don. Unless they find somebody to take over, I will see that Christmas is done and maybe even Halloween, if that's the case. But because I think the Christmas looks nice, and I think it looks nice coming to town, having something out there.
Absolutely.
So we'll see how it goes next year, but that's all for this year.
Well, it did look nice this year, so thank you for volunteering your time and making sure the tradition continues.
Yeah, well, that's why I said to Don, I'd like to do a little more, but I mean, the money's always the issue, and I don't know if the town forks up money because Don bought a lot of stuff on his own, and
he did, yes. He bought the chairs on his own, and he bought a lot of the paint and supplies on his own, or he had people get it donated. I know he mentioned Ward's donated a lot of stuff over the years for the park, so.
Oh, I didn't know that, so that's good news.
Yep. So, well, thank you very much, Jay, for sitting down and talking about Don and all his years at the park. Welcome to the program. Tell us your name and where you live and where you grew up.
Yeah, my name's Phil Sanville. I live in Haddonfield, New Jersey, part of southern New Jersey, and I grew up in Haddonfield, although I spent, I'd say, a third of my childhood in New York growing up as well.
Okay. Probably have just as much memories up here as you do growing up down there.
Oh, yes, if not more, because up there was more memorable, I'd say.
Okay. Well, tell us how you feel about the J Village Green.
Well, I have a lot of memories going there with my family to go to concerts they would have on Saturday nights, and what they still do. And they'd have food and music, and it's just a nice sort of center for the town and this nice little community space.
Do you know Don Morrison, who was volunteering to take care of the park in the J Village Green? Have you ever met Don?
I haven't.
Okay. He usually is only in the park occasionally, or he comes down, in the evening to take care of the flowers or to tidy things up. Mm-hmm. But he also, you might have seen him at the thrift store in Wilmington and not recognized him, but he's there often enough too. Tell me your thoughts on his dedication to the J Village Green over the 40 years that he's done the upkeep.
Well, from what I've seen and heard, it's been very important because it made the space what it is today, and made all the community gatherings possible. It's a beautiful space with the flowers, and there's a nice map there, courtesy of you. It's great that somebody cared enough to, put time into the gazebo and square and everything.
Yeah, he has done quite a lot of work over the time that he's been there. What is your thoughts on the bandstand, and do you know any history on it?
I know a little bit. My thoughts are it would be an odd space without it. Between being a center stage at the live music concerts and just a really nice historic piece that, and it's right near the covered bridge, which has its own history. So it sort of allows for a more historically relevant place to visit in Jay, and it just is. It's always been there for me, and it would be cool if it continued to be there.
It would be a shame for you to come up and find it missing, you're saying?
Definitely, it would kind of make that square into just a square piece of grass, really.
Yeah, it would lose its historical centerpiece.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
We kind of just hit on this, but the next question was would you be upset if the bandstand was destroyed for a music stage after 40 years of restoration work by Don and his volunteers? And in the interview, I mentioned that maybe the Music Society could build an outside stage on their remaining piece of property to the left of their theater, because they have a section of grass there that has a big enough spot for an outside theater to be built. Or they could build something around the southern portion of the gazebo, like just a wooden platform. That way the historic gazebo could stay in place, but there could be a platform around it for the bigger bands now.
Yeah, that would be a really nice compromise. I would see, especially if they were going to go that route, I would see no reason to take the gazebo down. It certainly looks a lot better than a stage by itself would be, at the very least.
Right. It just doesn't have the same feelings and nostalgic as the gazebo gives. So yeah. Right. What would you like to say to Don for his dedication to the town and the village green as a whole?
Oh, well, I'd like to thank him. It's people like him who make the community a better place, and help bring it together. It's always, whenever I've gone there or driven by, it's always been gorgeous. I've never had the thought of, oh wow, that's not that's unkempt or it's always a nice place. So yeah, I'd like to thank him for everything he's done.
Don definitely put in a lot of hours over the years.
It shows.
Did you ever volunteer at the park? Have you ever done any volunteering at any of the music or anything, or have you always just enjoyed it as a visitor and a resident?
When I was a kid, I might have done something there, but it was so long ago that I can't say for certain. It would have been probably with my dad, who did a lot of volunteering in the area.
Okay. Do you have any specific memories besides the music that you enjoyed at the J Village Green?
I met with friends there, just to hang out and walk around. As part of walking around the covered bridge and the green. Just mostly, being there with my mom and dad and sitting in the grass and enjoying it.
It's definitely a nice spot to do that. It's very, very peaceful and quiet for being on a main road.
Yes, it is.
So, any last thoughts before we end the interview? Do you have anything to add about the park or about Don or anything in general about it?
No, just that I'd continue to like to go there and enjoy it as it is. It's just a nice spot, and it's good to see it continue to be nice and flourish.
Well, let's Don, of course, retiring from being the leader of the volunteer base for the park, and being dedicated to going down every day and doing things. Don's hopes is that he can find a new person to take over that role, or maybe a subcommittee to take over his role to make sure that things get taken care of there. So we hope that it continues to look as nice as you enjoy it and remember it.
Yes, yeah. I wish him luck with that. I hope he finds someone or is able to start a committee.
Well, thank you very much, Phil, for sitting down with us today, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you, you too.
So we're going to start off. Tell me your name and where you live and where you grew up.
Jay Ward, and I live on Howard Heights in Jay, and I grew up here in Jay.
Okay. And tell us how you feel about the Jay Village Green.
Well, the Village Green is a space that I used to play in as a kid, so I have lots of fun memories there. The Jay Fire Department used to have their field day there, 4th of July field day, so that's a fond memory. Hanging out in the bandstand. So lots of fond memories growing up, and it always has been, and currently, obviously, is the center of our little hamlet here. So it's a wonderful green space, and today it hosts the concerts for Gems and other activities that are a wonderful addition to our town. So it's a sweet little spot with a little gazebo in the fountain there.
Yeah, it really is. It's very nice, and Don's always done a great job with himself and a few volunteers to keep it looking that way. So it's nice along with the town.
Yeah.
Tell us your thoughts on Don Morrison and his dedication to the Village Green.
So Don Morrison has been dedicated to that Village Green, I'm guessing, for, 25, 30 years. And I know you want to talk about the Village Green, but he's been dedicated to so many other things as well.
True.
And the food shelf comes right to mind as well. As far as the Village Green, it's always been nicely kept, but Don brought it to a new level in a lot of ways. One are the lamp posts. Add a nice touch in the evening, and the flowers. He does hanging baskets and often pumpkins and a lot of seasonal decoration. So instead of just being the Village Green the same all year round, it changes up some. And I don't think I mentioned the flagpole. There's a beautiful flagpole there as well. So
yeah,
it's not just mowing the Village Green to keep it there. It's all the little details that he's taken on.
Yeah, and we talk about that in his interview about the flagpole and how it came to be. We talked about how he restored the gazebo over the 30-plus years that he's been working on the Village Green, and the lamp posts, how he had to make them. He tried drilling them out from bottom to top, and ended up having to bring them to Ward Lumber and have somebody cut them in half, probably your dad, so he could finish running the wires up through the middle of them, because he said it was just getting too difficult to try and drill them from one end to the other.
Yeah, I bet.
And what is your thoughts on the bandstand, and do you know its history?
Well, I don't completely know its history. A little bit of history is I put a roof on it, cedar shingle roof, I don't know, 35 years ago or something. I remember T.P. O'Neill helped me, and I don't know, maybe Don was there, I don't know. So I don't really know the history of the bandstand prior to that.
Okay. Well, we cover that in the interview, but it was from all the historical points and a couple different town historians, it seems to have been built in memory of a 5-year-old boy that drowned in the East Branch of the Ausable River. And it was built in the mid-1800s. The little boy drowned in the early 1850s, and then a few years later, the bandstand was built in his memory. And it was used for the brass band that used to practice on the village green. The Minutemen would train to the brass band, and there was a lot of other events that happened around it, but that's some of the main history of why it was there, why it was built.
Right.
Would you be upset if the bandstand was destroyed for a music stage after 40 years of restoration by Don and his volunteers?
I don't think that's a good idea. No, I like the bandstand. I don't know what the music stage would look like and how that would change things, but I like the history of the bandstand.
It kind of adds an old feel to the park that I think we're losing nowadays too. So,
I mean, I would be open to the music stage. I guess I'd want to know a lot more about it.
Right.
But I like the history of the gazebo.
I guess there's been some new people that have moved into town that wanted to have a music stage rather than not being able to utilize the bandstand properly because it's not big enough. And I guess the only thought that when me and Don talked, we talked about maybe Gems could build an outside stage on their remaining property, and then everyone could sit around the bandstand and watch the music from across the street. The town can get a permit to shut the road down every Saturday, and they could do that, or build a stage around the gazebo rather than tear it down. So Don had quite a few varied ideas about what they could do to do that rather than just remove the bandstand as a whole. So
yeah, my first thought was build the music stage at the other end of the park.
Right, and they've talked about that as well, but the sun sets behind the post office, and the sun would be in the audience's eyes trying to face the band, or the band playing on the stage in that direction. So he's not sure what they're going to do yet, but that was one of the things that was brought up. So,
whose decision will it be to how to proceed?
I'm assuming it's going to be the Parks Committee and the town board. I'm not entirely sure, but what memories do you have on the village green?
The J Fire Department used to host their field days there, and the park was packed because the booths would go around the perimeter, and then the center. I guess there was booths in the center too. A specific memory, is of the day prior to the field days. There was the old. I don't know what to call them. They were cars that went around on a little wooden track, and they would be set up and taken down for the event. And the day prior, they were being set up, and a couple of kids, myself and somebody else, got in the cars, and one of the bigger kids got in the middle and pushed it manually, but was able to push it really fast to the point that the car flipped, or I flipped and went out of it and wrapped my ribs around a post or something there. I don't know why I remember that, but that's a memory, a specific memory, very vivid memory as being a young kid.
Probably because it was painful.
Yeah. I have great memories of those field days, and my dad ran the French fry booth for the fire department for many years, and when I got old enough, I was able to help him in the French fry booth. And I think Dan Richards, my dad's cousin, would help him, and so a lot of great memories around there. And then obviously the Jumps concerts over the years. We often sponsored Roy Hurd and other performers, and a lot of great memories hanging out, and it being a gathering place for with those concerts, during those concerts, a gathering place for lots of friends and the community in general.
Yeah, everyone got to see everybody.
Yeah.
How difficult to touch? You said you helped to re-shingle the bandstand about 30 years ago. How difficult was it because of the shape of the structure to do that?
We had to do a little bit of repair on the roof, and I think on the eaves a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. I think it had wooden shakes on it at the time, and they had just gotten to the point where they looked really bad.
Mm-hmm.
So before it got worse, it made sense to tear them off and replace them. So the part that was the hard part was the pitch of the roof. It's a little steep. So I think I brought a forklift down from Ward Lumber to stage off of, and we were able to get it done. I think a couple weekends or 3 weekends we got it done.
Yeah. I often wondered how you guys did it, if you set up staging or what you did. So it makes sense that you had to use something to do it because it is so steep.
Yeah.
And we've covered this question. I was going to ask you if you ever volunteered at the park, but we just talked about that again. What would be your last thing to say about Don and for his dedication to the town as a whole? You mentioned that he was a part of the food shelf, but he was also a volunteer fireman for a very long time. He was on the Upper J Library Board, the planning board for the town of Jay. So he's done a lot of things that some people might not know about.
Yeah, I didn't know about the planning board or the Wells Memorial Library. I think that I don't know how to say thanks enough for all that Don has done and continues to do for our community. He's tireless. Where he gets the energy is I want to tap into that. It is such a gift to our community. So thank you, Don.
Don said at the very end of our interview that I asked him if he had any last thoughts, and he said that he had sometimes he wished he had the opportunity to spend more time with family rather than to do all the volunteering that he did over the years. And after I picked my jaw up off the floor, I didn't know how to really respond to that. I guess the town wouldn't be where it would be without Don's contributions. So he's kind of made his family bigger by doing that.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you have any last thoughts on anything with Don or the Village Green before we close down the interview?
It's not regarding the Village Green, but he had a very successful career in the Lake Placid school system. And I know and I only know this through stories and anecdotes, but I know he had a really positive effect on a lot of then young people that are now adults. So I know our conversation is focused on the Village Green and what he's done here for our community. There's also that body of work that is quite impressive as well. So Don's an amazing guy, and it's wonderful to have him as part of our community.
Yeah, I got told a story the other day that, and I looked it up in the newspaper, and it was there about he challenged the kids to do something, and it didn't specify exactly what the challenge was at the school, but he said that if they completed the challenge, that he would move his principal's desk to the roof of the school for a day. And apparently they made the goal, and he did it, and he sat on top of the Lake Placid school building for a whole day in the middle of February, which February is usually pretty cold.
Yeah.
And the report was that they brought him his lunch, and it froze before he could eat it.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, Don, I agree with you. I think Don has had a long-lasting impact on not just our community, but on a lot of people's lives and their communities by the lessons that he taught.
Absolutely.
And he works, you mentioned the food shelf earlier, before I shut the interview down. You mentioned the food shelf earlier, and you at Ward Lumber have worked with Don over the years to help raise money for the food shelf, leading up into the holidays around Thanksgiving and Christmas. Did you want to touch on that, Jay?
I think the aspect that I would want to touch on is Don's dedication to the food shelf is really inspiring for us to support the food shelf, and I'm sure other members of the community feel that as well. We offer the community an opportunity to round up their change or make donations that we match, and it feels great to go to a food shelf of all kinds, and then specifically the Wilmington food shelf because of Don's long-term dedication. It makes it that much sweeter.
Absolutely, and the Wilmington food shelf covers both Wilmington and Jay residents, and it's Don has put a lot of time and dedication into it, and it's solely ran by Don and his volunteers. The church gives them the place, but Don and his volunteers do all the work, so it's really nice. All right, well, thank you so much, Jay, for sitting down and talking with us and giving your thoughts on the Village Green and Don's dedication. It's really great.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So welcome to the program, and tell us your name and where you live and where you grew up.
My name is Randy Douglas. I'm 58 years old. I live in the town of Jay. I grew up on Main Street in All Sable Forge. I am the son of Thomas and Ava Douglas and the grandson of Arthur and Ida Douglas.
Okay. Tell us how you feel about the Jay Village Green.
You know, a lot of fond memories there, Christopher, from the days of the 4th of July celebration there, going there with my family. Just the different events over the years. It's a special place, and I remember when I first took office as town supervisor in 2004, and you know the controversy of the covered bridge and where to place the new bridge and those sort of things, and the Village Green came up a lot about the historic value of it to the town of Jay, and there's a lot of memories. There's a huge identity for everyone that from our community and people just passing by.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, just someone driving through town, it really must attract their attention because of everything that's there.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, you can go to a lot of municipalities, and they're not as lucky as we are to have the infrastructure that we do, the historical infrastructure, such as the covered bridge and the Jay Village Green. There's special places, and as I mentioned before, about other things that have taken place in the town of Jay to keep these historic values, because they are your town's identity. They are memories that people cherish and hold on to forever, to share with new generations.
Absolutely. I interviewed someone the other day, which will be included in this portion of the broadcast, and he's been coming here since he was little, and he said he would just it would just not feel the same if like the gazebo, the bandstand wasn't there. He said it would just feel it wouldn't feel like it always has to him if it wasn't there. So it makes sense with everyone's memories of things. Um, Tell us your thoughts on Don Morrison and his dedication to the Jay Village Green.
Don is irreplaceable. He was such a benefit to to us and my administration when I served from town supervisor from 2004 to 2015. Don was, whatever Don wanted and needed, it was a necessity. It wasn't just a want. It was something that needed to make the Village Green safe and appealing to everybody. And he took great pride in, and he still does, great pride in continuing to make that place the Village Green, a beautiful place for all to visit. And anytime that Don asked for anything, I brought it to our town board, and there was no question about it. Let's do this. Let's make it work. And I had a lot of highway superintendents over the years that worked with Don to get him the materials and that he needed to keep that place as beautiful as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And Don would always recruit people to come in and help with something, like putting the flagpole up or painting the bandstand like we did last year. I was one of the people in the small group that showed up, and Don just wanted to repaint the white on the bandstand because he thought it needed touching up before the 4th of July. And we ended up making him go back up and getting the green from his house, and we ended up painting the whole outside as much as we could in that day. He's like, I want to be here for maybe 2 hours, and we ended up being there for like 6 or 7.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and it looks great. And I'll tell you, Don is so appreciative. I've never heard anybody say a bad word about Don Morrison. He is. If there was an award in this town for Citizen of the Year, Don Morrison would have won it 50 times. It's just he's an amazing person. His families are amazing people, and we're very thankful. And the town of Jay has been very thankful, and the community as a whole, very thankful and appreciative of his services and his families.
Yeah, because he just didn't dedicate time to the Jay Village Green. He was also a volunteer fireman. He also was on several boards over the years. I think he mentioned he was on the planning board. He was on a board for the county, I think, representing the town. And he was on the Upper J Library Board. And of course, he's now running the food shelf, or he's a part of the food shelf program out of Wilmington with the church and the thrift store. So he's done so many things. And I'm sure there's countless things that he has done that nobody knows he did. But it's just a small gesture that he might have just taken on himself and did it.
Absolutely. He's one person that you can say that never wanted credit for anything. Never wanted his name attached to anything. He just wanted to say the J Village Green. Or from what you see at the thrift store. My wife goes to the thrift store up there in Wilmington every Wednesday, and she just loves the place. And it's amazing what Don and his committee and all the helpers up there have done with that. It's anything that Don Morrison touches turns to gold. And that's how well respected he is. And I was just talking the other day with Javier Perez, who used to work at Alcebo Valley Central School, and he's now the superintendent in Saranac. And we started talking about Don Morrison because Javier worked at Lake Placid Elementary School as the dean of students. And he said, and I asked him just Saturday night, did you know Don Morrison? He said, no, I know the name. But he says he was so well respected in Lake Placid that he said, I don't know if anybody will ever be able to compete with that. And that's coming from a young superintendent to a principal, an older principal that retired from there. We talked about the time that he challenged the kids for something for a fundraiser, and then he would sit on the roof for the whole day. And he did that. Don was always trying to figure out of the box how to make something better. And like I said, anything Don touched turned to gold.
And he actually did fulfill that challenge, because there's an article, I think it was the Lake Placid newspaper that wrote about it. I'm not 100% sure on that. It was one of the papers up that direction. But he had to sit on the roof, I think, in February. And they brought him soup for lunch, and before he ate it, it froze.
Oh my gosh! That just goes to show you the type of character he was, and thank God for people like Don Morrison.
And dedication. Talk about frostbite worry.
Right, for sure. For sure. Lucky he didn't have any permanent damage from that, but that's Don. If he says he's going to do something, he does it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, he definitely does. So I'm going to ask you the next question here that I have.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on the historic bandstand, and do you know any of its history?
Uh, my feeling on the bandstand is it's historic value, and that it's brought so many fond memories to many people traveling through, or locals, or generations for years. And in my opinion, I'd love to see the bandstand stay in the Village Green. I think it's important. It certainly adds to our community.
Absolutely. Don said he put a new floor in it. He also redid the siding on it. And 32 years ago, Don and Jay Ward and there was one other person, and I don't have that person's name offhand. They redid the cedar shakes on the roof 32 years ago, which Don said that's the only thing it really needs now is it needs a new cedar shake roof again because they're just in need of replacement. But the rest of it is in good shape, and that's kind of one of his requests is he'd like to see it re-roofed.
I would think that it definitely, whether it's done through fundraising or through the town budget with the town board and Supervisor Stanley. I don't know what their budgets are or for parks or what have you, since I've been out of office for 8 years. But it's something definitely worth investing in. It's historic value, and I mentioned to you privately before we did the interview, Christopher, I still am heavily involved in refurbishing the historical bleachers in All Sable Forks. And the more I dug into that, and we did a GoFundMe page, and people were donating, they brought up so many memories of the time they sat in those bleachers to waiting to hear if they were going to be drafted, or watching baseball games, or going to the day camp at the local playground. And so those values you can't get back when you tear something down. So I'm happy to say we're refurbishing that. And the same thing needs to happen with the bandstand. There's I'm sure if it was put out there, the historic value of this, people would be overwhelmingly supportive of helping financially, including myself. There's just, people remember the first concert they listened to, the first band they listened to, maybe their first boyfriend or girlfriend they sat in the bandstand with, and those sort of things. The 4th of July celebrations with the bandstand there. So it's a historic value. It's the identity of one of the main identities of the town of Jay. And I think it's a historical value, and if possible, and it can be refurbished with a new roof, I think it should be.
Yeah, absolutely, and I don't think it would be too hard of a task to achieve that because I know the town of Jay's planning on celebrating. I think it's 225 years this year.
Yes, it is.
And maybe that could be one of the goals is to have it re-shingled for the celebration for the 4th of July, because the parade goes right by it every year. They do the parade in Jay.
Absolutely.
That's why Don wanted to repaint it before the 4th of July because he wanted to make it look as fresh and as nice as possible for the 4th of July.
That would be wonderful if that could happen. Again, I don't, I do speak to Supervisor Stanley on occasion. Either he has a question and he gives me a call, and I'm always glad to share advice or my opinions. If they ask, I try and stay out of getting involved. Because I don't think it's fair to look over any administration's shoulder. But I will say that I'm sure that the town of Jay and the Supervisor Stanley and the town board, I'm sure they'll come up with some plan to make that possible. I'm sure they care very deeply about the J Village Green and the historic value of the bandstand, for sure. It's just so many memories there. It just, I can tell you a memory that I have of the Village Green. It just came to me. John Mcdonald, Councilman McDonald's brother, and I have been great friends for years. He was in my wedding, and he challenged me one day when I was, 15 years old, and he says, I bet you can't throw a ball across the park. Well, I used to throw sidearms, so I threw a baseball, and it went across, and it did make it just barely across the park from where McDonald's store was to the other side, and it barely made it, and we still talk of that today. There's so many fond memories of things that people share at those, and you can't get that back. When you remove a structure like the bandstand, you can't get that history back. And so I think it would be wonderful if the community got behind it and refurbished it or whatever needed to be done, because there's so many memories from generations past, and you want those memories to be shared with new families moving into the town of Jay.
Absolutely. I mean, if the bandstand could talk, I'm sure it could tell a lot of stories.
Yeah, I'm sure. From the stories I heard about the bleachers in All Sable Forks, I'm sure there's a lot of stories from the Hamlet of Jay residents too about that the bandstand.
Absolutely. And I mean, not just, I mean, if you think about your generation of residents,
Mm-hmm.
but if you think of 1890, from historical accounts, the bandstand has been there since the mid to late 1800s, because from what the two town historians, Mary Wallace and Sharon, according to Sharon's Post, it's in memory of a boy that died in 1850s, who drowned in the river.
Mm-hmm.
So, if that is the case, it's been there that long. There's been so many family generations that have seen that bandstand, have stood in it, or have enjoyed music out of it. It's just so important in so many aspects, and it's the centerpiece kind of the park. Even though it's not in the center of the park, that's what's always been there. And even going back into news articles that I found, people that were interviewed for that article in the 70s, who were in their 70s and 80s, would say it's always just been there. It's always just, the bandstand's always just been there. And it's just a part of the town, and it's a part of us. So
yeah, it's part of our identity. It's those things you can't replace. That's part of our identity. I remember back in 2011, a week, it was like 3 days after Hurricane Irene hit us, and Governor Cuomo at the time came to town, and I met him with Highway Superintendent at the time, Chris Garrow, DPW Director Chris Garrow, and we met the governor right there at the Village Green, and he came with his daughter that time, and he said, I'll be back to help you with whatever you need, and which he did. But he commented then on the bandstand, saying, that's a beautiful piece of history right there. He was standing with me and Chris and a state trooper and some members of the National Guard right where the telephone booth used to be. We were standing on that corner.
Yep.
And he wanted to walk over and see the bandstand. So, this was somebody that had never seen it before, the governor of the state of New York, and was talking about how amazing that is to have something like that in your center of the town of Jay.
no more words needed on that subject, I don't think.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And so many people, Christopher, come through town, and even nowadays, when I go by and I'm on my way to Albany or whatever, I come down the hill because I live in All Sable Acres. I come down the hill, and you'll see people stopping for picnics, sitting in the bandstand, or just walking around taking pictures. And those are the sort of things that bring people to the town of Jay. And now, we are a tourist town, and those are things that are our identity, and I'd hate to lose that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the next question kind of leads into the music on the park. Perhaps Gems could construct an outside music stage on their remaining property to the left of their theater, or a ground level stage around the south side of the bandstand to keep the historic structure in place. and still utilize the park as their music for summer events. What do you think about them doing something like that instead of the small idea that's been bouncing around to get rid of the bandstand?
Yeah, and it's only my opinion. And like I said, I'm not a town official anymore. I've been out of it for 8 years, but it's definitely, in my opinion, I would love to. I understand both sides, but I lean towards the historical value and the memories of identity of the town of Jay and the bandstand and what it means to from generations past to generations coming forward. But I understand that, in today's equipment with bands or whatever shows that are put on, there's a lot more high tech equipment needed, so they need more room. So I get that. So I would definitely be in favor of seeing something, a new structure, a smaller stage put somewhere where it would serve the purpose properly so gems and whoever could still get top-notch entertainment, which they do, and do a great job of doing that, to provide the necessities needed to put on a high-level performance. But I'd hate to see it at the cost of removing the bandstand.
Right, yeah, because, I think at one point, many years ago, there used to be a wooden platform on the south side of the bandstand, and then it disappeared, and I'm not sure if it just rotted and it got taken out, but there used to be some sort of wood platform on one side of it.
I think I believe you are right on that. I believe you're right.
They could reconstruct something again. They could even pour a concrete pad on that side so it wouldn't rot. And,
sure.
Because regardless whether they're standing on dirt, grass, concrete, or wood, you're still going to stand there for that long of a time, and your feet are still going to hurt at the end of it.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. But you have to weigh the pros and cons of it. And I understand that, and I'm not sure who's in favor, who's against, and those sort of things, sometimes get controversial. But you have to weigh the benefits of the history of the town, Jay. And anytime I can weigh the benefits of the history, I'm leaning that way, because it's your town's identity. It's part of the big picture of our history of our 225 years of existence.
Yeah, absolutely. And the bandstand has been there for a fair amount of those years.
Yeah, for sure.
And we've talked about this, and I just asked a question, just because I've asked everyone else the question. What would you like to say to Don for his dedication to the town as a whole?
Well, sincerely, I can't thank Don enough. And like I said previously, if there was an award for Citizen of the Year, Don Morrison would win it 50 times over. He never wanted credit for anything, always wanted to do the right thing, always was willing not just to ask for help, but put his own time and effort and into refurbishing the Jay Village Green or anything he's touched. Like I said, it's touched to gold. So it's turned to gold. So I personally, when I was a town official, I would personally like to thank Don and his family for all they have done for the town of Jay. And everybody that knows Don Morrison does not have a bad thing to say about him. He's just a wonderful, wonderful person.
Absolutely. He mentioned one story in his interview that instead of having the town pay for a new flag on the flagpole, he put out change collection jars.
Mm-hmm.
So that the townspeople, and I think he said they did it with the kids as well, maybe at the school,
Mm-hmm.
and so that way they could be a part of the flag on the park. And that got me thinking that maybe that could be done in the same way with the bandstand. They could do that to buy the cedar shakes to re-roof it.
Absolutely. It'd be a wonderful project. Maybe it's something I don't even know, and I don't want to put all Sanville Valley on the spot, but maybe it's something the shop class could look at, one of the shop classes, and maybe somebody, the town can work with the school. Maybe they can do it as a school community project, and I'm sure people will donate. I mean, I definitely donate funds to help refurbish the bandstand. So, those sort of things. There are possible ways to raise money, GoFundMe's, or, the good old-fashioned bake sales. But I'd be glad to help in any way I could if somebody wanted to start a fundraiser just for that, so it's not a burden on the taxpayers.
Yeah, absolutely. And in incorporating having like the kids with the shop class do it, that would fit right into everything of Don 100% because he was a principal and a teacher his whole life. So
Absolutely.
to teach the kids a trade that in all truthfulness is probably narrowing because not many use cedar shakes anymore. It would be a really big learning experience for them.
Absolutely. I think it'd be wonderful. It'd be a win-win for everybody.
Yep.
And we were just talking about a story about Don and how he reaches out. I don't think it was last Halloween. I think it was the Halloween before, and Don had put the pumpkins out that he always does, and all of a sudden they had some vandalism and all the pumpkins got smashed. And Don put it out there on the J Community News that he needed help refurbishing and getting the new pumpkins to be in place for Halloween. And so I immediately called Don and sent an email. But Don says, Randy, I don't need your pumpkins. He says, but thank you so much. He says, you would not believe the people that have reached out to me and offered pumpkins. He said, hundreds and hundreds of pumpkins we would have had if I would have accepted them all. He says, but that's how wonderful our community is. Don put out there a time of need so everybody could enjoy the park. And I think it was Wood Lumber and maybe Praise Farmers Market that donated the pumpkins to Don, but individuals didn't have to donate because Don had so many people that were willing to come to his need at the time to support the community in a time of need.
Yep, and he did too. It's like when he put the J News post out when he wanted to freshen up the bandstand. He got a small group of people that came together, and we all brought a paintbrush, and Don brought the paint, and we all did what we needed to do, and Connie brought cold iced tea down for everybody, and we learned about each other, because everyone didn't know everybody that was there, so we all got to talk and meet new people and learned about things, and everybody kind of made a new friend that day.
Sure.
So by Don's actions, he brought people together that would have never probably had a conversation like that unless we were busy putting the paint on the bandstand.
You just hit it right on the head, Christopher. Sharing stories amongst the community members from whatever age that's the historic value.
Yep, absolutely.
And the Village Green. So you hit it right on the head. Those are the things, and you find out when you do work days or fundraisers that the amount of people that come forward and are willing to help. So yeah, absolutely. You just hit it right on the head.
What you shared a couple of memories from the green, but do you have any other memories in particular that you can remember, maybe with Don or anything from the 4th of July or growing up that you remember distinctly?
Well, I remember as a kid, my Aunt Joan Brown and Uncle Orville Brown live up on Route 86, and we used to go up there for the 4th of July. My father back then would announce the parade, and my grandfather before him. I've been announcing the parade now. This will be I've been 23 years. Well, the 1 year they didn't have it, so this 23 years I've been announcing the parade. But as a kid, we would go down to the celebration, and that night we'd go sit up at my aunt and uncle's house and have our sparklers out and watch the beautiful fireworks. And during the daytime, we were down there with just enjoying the festivities, and those are fond memories of the 4th of July being on the Village Green. With Don in particular, my memory of Don is anytime when I was a town official and Don asked for something, it was something that was desperately needed, and because he hated to ask for help, but when he did, you knew it was needed. And not once did the town board say, "Oh, we can't afford to do that this year. We can't." We found a way to come to Don's aid, which in turn was a huge benefit to the community, the town of Jay, and I can't thank Don enough and his family. They just again, he's just a great person. Who we are so very fortunate to have in our community.
Yeah, absolutely. And Don said a lot of times, he would just, you know, go buy what was needed and not worry about, asking the town unless it was something that he couldn't do, or Ward Lumber used to donate stuff for him all the time, because he mentioned talking about the light posts that he built, which are still there. Or the cedar shakes on the roof of the bandstand when they did it 32 years ago. It was he would just do what was needed and get things coordinated, and sometimes people would donate things, sometimes he would buy things, sometimes he would go to the town for things. So it's great that he was able to coordinate it all.
It certainly is. Like you said, there were many times he took the money right out of his own pocket. I remember having conversations where he would say, "Well, I need 2 gallons of paint, or I need this," and he says, "But I'll tell you what. If the town can buy one, I'll buy the other one." You know what I mean? Things like that, and that's what he did. And
Yep.
that's him. That's his community spirit and his pride of the Village Green.
Yep. Did you ever volunteer at the park?
I had volunteered. The park that I've been volunteering at the last couple of years is down at the covered bridge, and the new park committee had put together, and I volunteered down there to pull weeds with my family and pull weeds and put some new mulch down and stuff. But I don't recall ever being a volunteer at the Village Green for anything that I can remember, but mostly at the covered bridge and Douglas Memorial Park down there, and I know they're having one on May 20th, and hopefully I can get some our family members to once again participate in that. But the Village Green, I'd love to participate. The last 8 years, I've been having office in Albany and in Plattsburgh, and so I'm not around as much, but I certainly would welcome an opportunity to a work day at the Village Green, and be glad to assist in any way possible.
Well, maybe you'll have to help put a few cedar shakes on if they go ahead with that.
If they do, I'd love to. As long as they're all worked out with my schedule, I'd love to. It's an important piece for the community. So yeah, the bandstand, like I said, if I can help in any way, I'd definitely be glad to do it.
Okay.
I think I did go up now. I'm thinking back when I was supervisor, so I don't call it volunteering because I was a paid official for the town, but I remember going up there a few times with Chris Carroll and the highway department, DPW workers, and doing a few things and pulling weeds and helping assist whatever, getting the water fountain up and running and getting a new pump. I remember the pump used to break every once in a while, and we had to get a new pump, so I went up at those times. But I wouldn't say it was volunteerism at that time because I was a paid official for the town of Jay, but it was near and dear to my heart, and I'm very proud of the Village Green.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got your hands dirty, which,
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you were being paid, you were on the clock, but you got out there, you got your hands dirty, and you did something. So that I think that counts in a way. So
okay, all right. I always like to volunteer. I try and be still heavily involved in a lot of community events when I can, and whether it's a softball tournament or Christmas in the Forks or festivities, refurbishing the historical baseball field or whatever, and also whatever. I try and stay involved with the community, with my family, and because I'm very proud of the town of Jay, and I'm very proud of living and growing up here, and as my time as being a town official. It was one of the greatest times of my life. Trying time, for sure, with the many disasters, including Hurricane Irene, but great fond memories.
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all the questions that I have. But the last thing I have wrote here on my list is I usually open up the interview to any last thoughts from you. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll end the interview.
Okay. Well, Christopher, thank you for allowing me the time today. I was glad we could work it around my schedule, and I really appreciate it. And it's been truly an honor to have a chance to say thank you to Don Morrison and his family for everything he's done for the town of Jay, all the events and fundraisers that he's been involved in, and especially the Village Green. So Don and his family, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And Christopher, thank you for all you do. That your service that you're providing these YouTube radio interviews and sharing some history of the town of Jay is remarkable. So I really appreciate your efforts too, Christopher. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I'm trying to raise awareness to things that I think is important in the town. So hopefully these interviews will do that.
Yeah, well, you're doing a great job. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for talking with us, and we might call on you again someday.
Call anytime, Christopher, and I'll be glad to arrange my schedule to speak with you. So thank you so much.
Okay.